Imagine your thermostat set to a comfortable temperature. You probably don't think much about it, but for hundreds of thousands of years, your ancestors faced brutal winters without any modern comforts. They had no thermostats, no insulated homes, just their own ingenuity against a cold that could kill in hours. How did they not only survive, thrive? The answer is surprising. Will change how you view your own home. Let's consider the extreme cold they endured. We're talking about temperatures as low as -40 degrees Fahrenheit on the vast plains of Eurasia. It was a cold that caused exposed skin to die in minutes, made breathing painful, and felt like a relentless hunter, a person from today, dropped into an ice age winter without preparation, would likely perish before morning. Popular belief often pictures shivering cave dwellers huddled around tiny fires, barely surviving. However, archaeological discoveries tell a very different story, a story of skilled engineers. Here's the first misconception about your ancestors. They mostly didn't live in caves. In Kostroma, Russia, evidence from 800,000 years ago reveals circular pits, up to 8 feet deep, 12 feet wide. These weren't natural. Tool marks show they were dug intentionally to these precise depths. Why? Because just 6 to 8 feet underground, the soil remains 20 to 30 degrees warmer than the air above. Your ancestors didn't fight the cold. They went beneath it. Even more advanced techniques emerged later. At Dolní Věstonice in the Czech Republic, 26,000 years ago, archaeologists found winter shelters with walls made of multiple layers, each with a specific purpose for warmth. The inner layer was animal hide, with fur facing inward to trap warm air against the body. Outside this, dried grass and moss absorbed moisture. The outermost layer consisted of woven mats of reed, bark, which blocked wind, allowed moisture to escape before it could freeze, damage the structure. This wasn't guesswork. It was sophisticated, layered thermal engineering, similar to the insulation in modern homes. Today's buildings use vapor barriers, foam, and weatherproofing. Your Ice Age ancestors used hide, moss, and bark. The materials differed, but the scientific principles were the same. What's truly remarkable comes from sites like Mezherik, Kostenki in Ukraine. Researchers there found something astonishing. Actual houses. Not caves or simple windbreaks, but engineered buildings constructed entirely from woolly mammoth bones. Imagine this. Mammoth skulls, each weighing over 200 pounds, used as foundation stones. Curved tusks formed dome-shaped frames. Hundreds of smaller bones filled the gaps, providing support. The entire structure was covered with layers of stitched mammoth hide, thick enough to block wind, shaped to shed snow. This wasn't just survival instinct. It was architecture. Experiments rebuilding these houses have confirmed that a well-constructed mammoth bone house could keep interior temperatures 40 to 50 degrees warmer than the outside air with only small fires. Modern Arctic shelters, with industrial insulation and electric heating, often achieve similar results. Think about that. Stone Age builders, using only bones, hide, and stone tools, matched the thermal performance of today's Arctic engineering. But none of this would work without fire. Fire wasn't just for warmth, it was essential for Ice Age winter life. The heating systems inside mammoth bone houses were advanced. A central fireplace provided the main heat. Smaller fires were placed around the edges, creating warm areas for specific activities cooking here, making tools there, babies. Elders stayed closest to the warmest spots. The layout was carefully planned. In the treeless plains, wood was scarce. So, your ancestors developed other fuels, dried mammoth dung. Specially prepared bone were used to maximize burning efficiency. Chemical tests of fire remains show these fuels were treated deliberately, not just thrown on the fire, but managed for specific heat outputs. They were not just burning anything, they were managing fuel as a valuable resource. And then there was ventilation. Modern Arctic engineers are genuinely impressed by this. Without proper airflow, moisture from breathing, cooking builds up inside any enclosed shelter. In freezing temperatures, This moisture turns to ice, destroying the structure from within. Archaeological evidence at Kostenki shows carefully designed airflow systems. Small openings near the ground brought in fresh air, while larger openings near the top allowed warm, moist air to escape. Most documentaries overlook what happened inside these shelters after dark. For hundreds of thousands of years, your ancestors went to bed at sunset, woke before dawn, but their sleep wasn't like ours. They slept in 2 phases, about 4 hours. Then a wakeful period of 1 to 2 hours, followed by another 4 hours until morning. This wasn't insomnia. It was the natural human sleep pattern, found in historical records across many cultures, confirmed by a 1992 experiment. Psychiatrist Thomas Wehr found that when modern humans were kept away from artificial light for a month, they all returned to this 2-phase sleep pattern. Anthropologist Polly Weissner studied the Jew Hoansi Bushmen of the Kalahari, one of the few groups still living in a way similar to early humans. She found that nighttime conversations were very different from daytime ones. During the day, 80% of talk was practical about hunting, resources. But at night, around the fire, 81% of conversations were stories. The campfire was the first theater, the first classroom. The famous Venus figurines found at ancient sites were often discovered in winter shelters. The cave paintings from this period were often created during the long winter months. The art that defines our species wasn't made in summer warmth. It was made by firelight in bone houses. The outside world was frozen. Building a mammoth bone house took 2 to 3 weeks of intense work for 8 to 10 adults. This meant construction had to start in late summer, early autumn, before outdoor work became impossible. Analysis of tools. Seasonal clues confirms this. These were not reactive builders. They were planners with a mental calendar. Food storage was also carefully engineered in areas with permafrost. Underground chambers connected to winter shelters by short tunnels acted as natural refrigerators, keeping meat frozen, accessible all winter, even during severe storms. Clothing followed the same layered principle as the shelters. Multiple layers of different animal hides, each chosen for specific thermal properties. Wolf fur, fox, Arctic hare. The inner layer trapped warm air, and the outer layer blocked wind. Moisture, the same physics as a modern winter jacket, developed out of necessity 25,000 years before Gore-Tex existed. And if the shelter was damaged, which happened often, it was repaired immediately. Archaeological evidence shows continuous maintenance throughout winter. Broken bones were replaced, hide coverings patched, and insulation refreshed. This wasn't a structure they built. Hope for the best. It was a living system they constantly managed. At the end of the Ice Age, as the climate warmed, forests grew. This entire system of knowledge was no longer needed. It was in loss due to disaster, but gradually became obsolete. Modern Arctic engineers studying ancient shelters have been truly surprised. Military Arctic training programs now teach shelter building methods based on reconstructions of these 20,000-year-old designs. Disaster relief organizations have adapted these techniques for emergency shelters in harsh environments. We lost this knowledge, then spent a century rediscovering it with modern science, only to find that our ancestors had already perfected it with bones. Stone tools. Go back to your thermostat. The temperature it shows is something your ancestors would have considered miraculous. Not because they couldn't achieve warmth, they could, in conditions far more extreme than anything you'll ever face, but because achieving it demanded everything from them. Every warm night required weeks of preparation. The next time winter comes, and you instinctively reach for that thermostat,